Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I'm Casey Hawkins, a HubSpot consultant and founder of Casey Co Marketing. And today's session is more than just a roundtable. It's the official kickoff to something I've been working on behind the scenes, the Lead Scoring Masterminds, a 2-month guided program running July through August to help marketers and RevOps leaders rebuild their lead scoring systems before the HubSpot sunset. Sunsets the legacy scoring tool on August 31st. But before we dive into that, let's get started with some real talk, because let's face it, most lead scoring systems, they're broken. They're over-engineered, misaligned, and honestly pretty unhelpful when it comes to actual prioritization. So I've invited a few sharp minds who have lived those frustrations to join me today for an honest conversation about what's not working and what we wish existed instead. Then I'll introduce the value first scoring approach. We'll be diving deep into this during the Masterminds program, a new way to think about fit, engagement, and what it actually means for sales and marketing to work together on scoring. So let's get into it. Today I have with me Oaks from Who First, Madeline from Basis Inbound, and Clement from Celestial. How is everyone doing today?
Great. How are you?
Really good. Well. My fit score engagement score is high.
High engagement today. Yeah. If we can get everyone to jump in the comments and boost those engagement scores up, that would be helpful. Help us in prioritizing our leads from there.
Enter what your engagement score is.
Enter what you think your engagement
on a scale of alligator emoji to 10.
Maybe instead we just use that on form submissions, just like into your, what is your level of engagement? Where should we rank you? Might work. So I know that there have been a lot of pain points with lead scoring historically. Obviously, one of the main reasons we're talking here today is the sunset of the legacy scoring tools inside of HubSpot. Just want to talk a little bit about who is using those tools, how they've worked in the past. Oaks, you want to go first, just because you're next to me in my window, at least?
Sure, yeah. It's from my perspective, the thing that I work with clients a lot on the legacy lead scoring on kind of old school approaches is trying to avoid the classic, but what does a score of 78 mean? And it doesn't matter how many times you say, look, it's not about like how many points all of these things necessarily add up to, but it's like, if you have 30 minutes and you have 2 deals that are above 70 and one that's 30, can you invest your time in the high score opportunities, right? That's, in my experience, that kind of reverse calculus has been less of a challenge as scoring and automated scoring has kind of permeated the industry. 7 years ago, 10 years ago, it was a big challenge. That was, we would get into fist fights with reps about like, look, don't worry about if email is worth 7 or 5, right? But trying to get alignment between scoring and activity and the actual journey that the customer goes on, that's where there is still so much friction, right? Like we're so obsessed, so many for good reason are obsessed with focusing on like, well, does this align with our ICP, or which of these characteristics do we need to use to bucket for automation or lead assignment or whatever, when the real thing that we want to know is, where is the prospect on their journey, in their like mindsets, in the things that they need to do in order to be comfortable with a purchase, and can we connect scoring to those things and not just, oh, we sent an email or they opened a document, or some of our fitness criteria that we can track, right? And then that makes closing the loop on the field fear, like I have too many conversations with marketing leaders, especially, who are like, well, we don't want to tank our conversion rates by asking value-oriented questions or fit-oriented questions on any of our conversion opportunities. It's like, well, I don't know how you're going to get to know your customers then, or do scoring, or use AI to assess like what their engagement in the sales process is.
Mhm.
And so if you don't collect that data, you don't have it to work from, right? And being able to score the things that aren't, enrichment data, like you can go out and pull in company signs, like, okay, that's typically actually not useful, right?
Yeah.
For scoring, except at the extreme ends of the spectrum, right?
Mhm.
So, I'm hoping that the sunset of legacy scoring, giving us some more tooling and it kind of expanding the way that we think and talk about these things, will give us a way to think about scoring that is more inclusive of the prospect's decision making and experience, uh, to bring us closer to the customer as early in the sales process as possible.
Yeah. Clement, what is your experience and current grievances with lead scoring?
Yeah. I mean, I too many times see, okay, these are my leads and these are my ICP, and I want to score them. And the first challenge I often face is, unclean data
Mm.
is the first obstacle,
Mhm.
always. I had a case, we were talking with one of the users. They wanted to prioritize how carefully they touch as a follow-up people, and they wanted to figure out, okay, I have time for top 10% of
Mhm.
those leads, and then 80% are fine to be touched with some kind of AI personalization. Then 20% I should probably just move on, and wait for when they're ready. And then we got the ICP list to help them score that. And the first bullet point was if the person is within marketing department. We looked into those 200 contacts in HubSpot, and there was no job titles at all. I mean, how can you even prioritize for the relevance and in who to help if you don't have the data available? Not talking to even thinking about what Oak said about engagement and all that, but even the data cleanup and enrichment is the first obstacle. And when we were doing that all kind of manual and human eyes looking at the data and then skimming through who to go first and then who last, it's fine. With AI will just take whatever it is in your portal. So if your data is untidy, unclean, incomplete, whatever the word is, or everything above, you'll have a hard time using and leveraging AI for that purpose. So I think data quality, tidiness is I think one of the things definitely to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think one of the big issues there is that like us as in marketers, the collective us, we don't want fields on forms because that lowers our conversion rate. But if we don't have fields on forms, we don't know anything about who we're talking to. So
Yeah, I was thinking while you guys were talking, like it sounds like so high school. Like, do they want me? Do they like me? Like, can you ask so and so if they like me? Like, I don't want to ask them myself. I just want to like infer it from random stuff that won't tell me anything.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, it can be a real problem. Madeline, is there anything else, any other grievances we didn't cover that you?
Mine, I feel like I have dodged the bullet on using the lead scoring tool, but it's probably because of how it was built. Like I I have seen it, I've touched it before, but I have always backed away or exited out of the tab because I immediately realized it didn't fit my needs, so I built around it. Like two specific things that I know I've done to get around it are I always ended up building like a products they're interested in type property, and then I would just tag it if they interacted with certain types of content, and it would just keep appending, and then that way I knew like what campaigns to enroll them in and stuff like that. But the other thing was I just kind of cheated the whole system by saying, you know what, an MQL is a hand raiser. Like, yeah, they're going to be super duper qualified, but like, what the heck? That makes sense to me. Like, there's no more definitive thing than if they explicitly asked to be, reached out to. That then means I haven't dealt with all of the decisions that come before that, the lead scoring, but that's why I'm excited to talk about this today.
Yeah, and I feel like, so I would say my greatest pain point with lead scoring historically is it's made up. It's like, whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter. Like, it's, and I actually just before this was on a call with a client about lead scoring, and our MQL threshold is 90 points, and marketing is getting pressure to send more MQLs. So they were like, why don't we just go to 80? Just change it to 80. And then suddenly, there you go.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of MQLs. Like, we nailed it. And that's not help. And we all know sales and marketing tend to have some disagreements.
Best friends forever.
Yeah. But I think this is one of like the lead scoring leads you to have this friction because you're like making this thing up. You're just saying once they reach this. And I've been there. I've built a lot of lead scores for people, and a lot of times when people ask me what's our lead score threshold when we're building it, I often have to say, I don't know. We basically have to build it, and then we have to see how it lands, because there hasn't been sure, there are things we do, like if we're aiming for 100, then to your point, Madeline, if they're a hand raiser, they're getting 100 points. But outside of that, it's kind of all made up.
Yeah, and that the same challenge comes. It's like initial creation, which is what you described, and then it's I feel like it's even harder when you actually try to iterate in a traditional lead scoring context, because we've said like, oh, our threshold is 70 or 75 or it's 80 or whatever. And then if you don't have enough data that it's overwhelming and you need to like get an analyst to help you, then all of those like, let's check in on lead scoring conversations are like, look at this person wasn't qualified, but they were an 85. Let's solve this. And it's like, well, they opened every email, they downloaded the thing, they filled out the forms, they filled out the secondary forms, and like, sure, you disqualified them on one of those characteristics, but if you want the pipeline so tight that no unqualified people get through, then I've got bad news for your quota attainment for next quarter. And the negative cases, like every single rep has had a bad lead, or spam or skunk or somebody get in with a good lead score, and that sticks in their craw more than the 75 who were in the middle, or the 10 that were really good, or whatever. And a lot of that stuff you can't automate away, right? So like when you then like, okay, if somebody clicks on our whatever, lead magnet, do you want to like drop those points down? And they're like, well, no, because people do, and it's really useful. Like you just get into this analysis paralysis with those, all of the negative examples from those scores.
Chris, who I assume is just screaming at us, wants everyone to know that Oaks is describing the qualification trap. But yeah, and Willem also, who, thank you. Hi, Willem. Thanks for spending your Tuesday evening on LinkedIn Live with us. We're happy to have you here. But he mentioned that negative scoring can help actually disqualify some of those hand raisers, which is a real benefit.
Great point. Yeah.
One of the things I think, and I've said this about the persona tool too. I've said this to Willem about the persona tool actually. I think lead scoring is in that same category to me, where it becomes this performative thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it becomes less realistic because you're like you were saying, Oaks, like, why didn't this person only has 85, and they're like, and then suddenly you're just like running in circles around for kind of not a lot of value, to.
Yeah, we don't have time to go down the persona tool rabbit hole because
we're not here to talk about the persona
start raging. But yeah, I mean, that disconnection from reality on both of those tools as traditionally implemented. I mean, you could do either of them well, but I mean, I've never seen an implementation of either of those where I think like, yeah, well done. You know, it's always painful.
Value first personas coming to a LinkedIn feed.
Well, I think too,
Audience
like,
profiles. That's what we are. Right, go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of what we're describing is what happens when you try to make a very subjective thing objective, which obviously is not easy or even necessarily recommended. So, like, you need to kind of look at your scoring and be like, okay, is this actually an objective thing? Or them opening an email, does that, like, we don't actually know. I don't know. You have to be really careful about how you're thinking about these rules. So.
Yeah, and that's why I brought you all here today. Hello, welcome. But as people are moving from the old tool, they're rebuilding, that you have to be rebuilding your score. If you're using lead scores, you have to be rebuilding them right now. And I have basically, since that was announced, urged people not to just rebuild their existing scores in the new tool. One, it's kind of hard. The new tool's different. But also, I think there's better options within the new tool that you can now be leveraging. And that was kind of the basis of the value first scoring, which the basis of this comes to, like, instead of looking at leads, we're looking at signals. So we're not looking at exclusively like who this person is. We're looking at what activities they took and how that translates to how sales ready they are. And spoiler, that doesn't mean they opened every email. In fact, just no.
I was going to say, you should see my email right now. I promise I'm interested, but I'm not reading any emails right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But then we're also looking at enablement instead of qualifications. We're using insights to facilitate helpful connections rather than block those progress. So those insights come in that you were talking about, like, what data do we actually need on these people? Do we have that? If not, then we need to start collecting that and start collecting it yesterday. But I think that's one thing I hear a lot when I start to build a lead score. Like you said, Clement, like, somebody will be like, well, we want to score everybody in the marketing department. And then you get to the job titles and you're like, we got nothing.
Yeah. What I'm also experiencing lately is, kind of, if you get a lot of inbound leads and on one side you want to make all the forms, easy to fill out. So you only ask maybe for an email, back to what we discussed. But then, you're getting a lot of, potentially wrong and bad emails and everything. And then I've seen, with the traditional lead scoring, you're scoring, okay, that person is from Microsoft, but I've seen it today in the morning. It was Charles Barkley, first name, last name, and with the email @microsoft.com. It was automatically associated with company Microsoft, so they have whatever, tens of thousands of company of employees there. So they're a super good fit according to everything.
Yeah.
We have the first name, we have the last name, all look good. They're with the right company. They're in the marketing department if they fill out the job title, and their first steps in terms of data cleanup in a way before and where I really see the opportunity for AI. Now it was hard to with typical approach find those wrong fill out forms. Now if you throw AI to that complete contact entry, it can qualify, okay, this is 99% guaranteed wrong email, or you can check the disposable domains and all that, which all starts to clean up the data before you even do the advanced enrichment and then scoring and then engagement and all that that we'll be talking about further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the like list controls in the new scoring framework, you could do it in the old scoring too. Like I think that from comparing now to 2015 or 2014, which I think was when I was first building scores in HubSpot, we have so many more controls and my observation is the clients in the portals that I work in um, have thought more expansively about like the ops side of you don't hear a lot of like, well, as soon as somebody fills out a form, we're going to send them an email, we're going to score them, we're going to roll in a sequence, and we're going to try to call them. Like people have figured out like, oh, we need to do our first sort of like hygiene pass in logging our sources, and then we do our spam checks, email validation, and then we have like, okay, now they are, accepted, for lack of a better term, and like starting your scoring at a point like that, right? And thinking about like, we're not going to score every contact, we're going to start scoring later in the like data chain.
Yeah, and the new tool does, so now you can choose lists. So you could create a list in HubSpot of contacts who have been cleaned in whatever that means in your organization. And at that point, start scoring them there, which is a really nice flexibility in the new tool versus the old tool, which if you were trying to do that, what you were doing is you were giving negative a billion points if you weren't, which the problem with that is then when someone like me comes in and is like, okay, what should our MQL score be? All of those points are throwing off that average.
Yeah.
And then it makes it really hard to figure out what a good score can and should be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The on the I forget what you said, Casey, but one of the points that you made just a minute ago, like
it's a brilliant one.
it was like really is connected to, in my mind, the the old scoring really is like oriented around like, well, what should we score? And the answer is like, well, anything that we can track, right? And that's where it's like, oh, did they open an email or a specific email, or how many emails do they open, or did they come back to the website, how many sessions have they had, right? And it's basically like, if anything is connected to a cookie, then it should go in the score. And the delineation of the engagement versus fit scores is step one, right? And it's also connected all the way back to the fear of form fields. But I think about this a lot in terms of, in Clement's Charles Barkley example, we want to keep the spam out, right? But if most businesses, if you ask them like, who's your ideal client, buckle up, because that's always a fun ride. But if they say like, oh, small businesses, and you say like, oh, like plumbers, and they're like, no, small businesses, like, oh, restaurants, attorneys, no, like, what do you mean, and you can back into like, whatever, some kind of business with like a size and a geographic and a revenue definition, and those are all characteristics of the business. A lot of those are available via enrichment, and so you can kind of kind of fit score on those properties.
Yeah.
But the thing that the reason we have discovery calls is that we are trying to figure out the kinds of things that are not in enrichment and that you can't even put on a form directly. Like
Mhm.
you can't be like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big is your pain point around solution that we serve as as a
Mhm.
company? Nobody's going to answer that. It's ridiculous. Um, and so, like, we have to go outside of even with fit and activity to the things that signal, like, if you were on the phone with a person and they said what would lead you to believe, like, oh, we can make a huge difference for this person or this company. Like, this is exactly where we're at. Uh, this is, they're asking for what we do in the way that we do it, and we can make an impact. You can score that, how can you score that coming off of a call, but also how can you create trackable experiences in HubSpot that allow you to use that in scoring for self-service buyers or self-service industries. And what I always advocate for is some form of tooling or assessment that ties into a custom object so that you can populate data and build lists and everything around it. But it's like, oh, you do this assessment of like, how big is the problem that we solve for you, and spits out a number at the end, right? And if it's the calculation is like, oh, you're a 7 out of 10 pain point or whatever, that's an engagement that's tracked, but it's a super useful thing to include
Mhm.
in the lead scoring,
Mhm.
and delivers value for the prospect rather than trying to make scoring all about like what we can track and what matters to us, like, oh, the size of company, because that's how we price our deals.
Yeah. I mean, it ties into Willem had a great suggestion about what if you had a first score when they hit a certain threshold, then you put in the resources to actually clean that contact record. And then you only further qualify if they've been cleaned, just because obviously there's a cost to cleaning every single one of your records. And depending on your organization and the volume of leads, that may or may not be reasonable. And I think, Oaks, your suggestion right there, like if you have something like that where you're able to show a level of quality up front, then you're able to then decide who we need to bother cleaning. Yeah. Um,
I would maybe to William's point. We just today came up with the name of that. We call it data firewall, in a way where doing the basic cleaning of data before you go into scoring and spending more credits for the proper enrichment and contact and company level. So they have that data and then do the AI scoring on top of it. That can be fairly affordable and not expensive to check MX records, to check if domains are disposable. Ask AI if Charles Barkley is a real Charles Barkley or not. That can be super cheap, and it can save you a lot of resources down the road, as well as improve in overall the AI scoring, because you'll be only scoring the right context to what else you said. So I think more and more important will be that initial cleanup of the data and validation of what you even consider to look at the behavior and how they go through the journey, because only then you can kind of rely on that score that will come out of the analysis.
yeah. One of the things that I really like about the new scoring tool in HubSpot, the lead scoring tool specifically, I think one thing that overwhelms people is when they go in to build that new scoring tool, you're asked immediately, do you want engagement? Do you want to score them on engagement or fit? And that's not what people are used to. And so immediately like startles people. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but like people are constantly like, I don't know. And now there's a combined score, but what I think people don't realize is the old score was a fit score, because the fit score is based on properties, and that is what we were used to be scoring everyone on, was properties. The big advantage of the new score is you can score based on engagement at scale. Sure, there were workarounds that people were using in the old score, because there are some behavior-based properties, is maybe how I'll call them. But I just want to make sure that we touch on that, because I think if you're scared to move to the new score, if you're procrastinating on it because you don't have, because you've maybe clicked in there and been like, you got that one question, or like, I don't know, I'm out of here. That's really why I'm so excited about the new score, is that engagement piece. And that's where we can like track engagement and track like buying engagement, not just those like top of funnel engagements as well. And with that, you can build like authentic relationships with people. Because if someone is like consuming your content but not ready to buy, I post a lot of on LinkedIn. Most of the people I talk to are consuming my content but not ready to buy. That's fine. That doesn't mean I can't facilitate meaningful relationships and things like that with them. And all of that is fine. And then if one day they come to my pricing page, I can be like, hello, George B. Thomas. I saw that you were on my pricing page. You probably need my help. I'm so glad you visited today. But we can, with the new score, we have the ability to look at things like that in a way we just like have never really had before. There's been some workarounds, but I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the new system. And if you haven't tried it, then you don't understand that. And even Oaks, you were mentioning the custom, you can create a custom object to store that. We can now score based on custom objects more easily, based on association labels. Like there's just so much more flexibility in the new score to enable us to like leverage all this. It enables us to leverage the data we have, assuming that we're able to identify what data is correct or accurate and clean, things like that.
That's a great clarification, that the old tool was meant to be a fit score. I think that's huge for people to realize, that's why it didn't work for what I was trying to do. Well, that's one of the reasons, but.
And I would say, that an engagement piece, which is obviously new, so no one, can just copy what you had in the old version, because this is new. This is now the opportunity to really, as you said, Casey, tailor the messaging to how you communicate to people. One is, okay, someone was 5 times on my website, but if they were reading a blog post, who knows why they were reading it? I don't know. The only way I can ask. But if someone was on our privacy page or on a pricing page, of course I should ask for a call or for a close. Compared to someone just reading a blog post, maybe I can offer another webinar that we just had yesterday, which is more appropriate call to action compared to, hey, let's hop on a demo because I have seen you read my blog post. So that engagement score, I think, is a really huge opportunity to rethink what you do with the score in the most meaningful way to build long-lasting relationships, better, brand reputation and all that we are all, I guess, talking now about. But this is, I think, the real kind of kick in the ass for everyone. Now is the time to rethink everything you do and how you communicate, and first how you score, and then how you use that score in the most meaningful way so you can improve everything.
And I don't think that scoring should be very complicated. In fact, I think those complicated scores are just another reason scoring fails, and it ends up getting set and forget, and then it becomes meaningless very quickly. I think that scoring should be pretty simple, which is, do we know that they're a clean ICP contact fit? I'm adding clean in there for you, Clement.
Thank you.
Do we know that they're if you're in B2B, are they also is the company a clean ICP fit? And then it's that engagement piece. That part, there's a little bit of flexibility on, like, the rest is like basically yes or no. Sure, you can say some people might be more of an ICP fit or less, but in an ideal world, you know who you're selling to. And then there's the engagement piece where, like, blog visits, do we need to send them a demo immediately versus pricing page, privacy page? Privacy page was interesting. I even made a face when you said it, because I've historically, like, used career pages and privacy pages as like negative scores. I don't do career pages as negatives. I don't do a lot of negative scores anymore, but I I stopped doing career pages because I don't think that necessarily means anything. But privacy page, I think you're right. I think that's a positive. I think that's especially, I mean, it depends on your business, but especially for you, Clement, where you sell like technology, people do care about the
I
privacy.
mean, with all the AI, I mean, I'm not going to privacy page where I'm just reading a blog post.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're further down in your thinking of whether you need a service or not, or a SaaS platform, whatever you need,
Mm-hmm.
when the privacy comes to your mind, at that point you'll go to privacy. You just don't wander around a website and, oh, here's a privacy button, let's see what it does, and then you go to the privacy page. You go there by by purpose.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and I think that's speaks to having a good understanding of what most people call your customer journey, and who first we talk about path to value, is and the continuous improvement of your scoring. Career is like in my general browsing, I look at the careers page of like software tools that I am evaluating for use, prospective clients, partners, all kinds of relationships that I'm investigating, because I want to know, like, are they in a growth mode? What are they looking for? If they just did a layoff or whatever. Those are all
Smart.
a value criteria that I use, when I'm looking at something. If particularly like if it's a prospective client, right? And who I would want to score, and I see like, oh, they're hiring for like 5 roles in the divisions that I would work with. So that's input into the outreach that I do or the conversations that I have, you know. And so like understanding the people that we are scoring, what are the things that they are thinking about? What are the like micro decisions that move them closer to buying or being engaged? And how do we get visibility on that with our scoring?
Any other final thoughts from anyone before we wrap up?
I'll just throw one food for thought to what Oak said. One is then, taking a look at the career page, and if they're hiring in your kind of department where you can help. And then the next level, I think, is using AI agents to go through those job listings and check what they're describing, what they're hiring for. And if you can then bring that information to whatever shape and form you need to improve the scoring, this is then another layer where a lot of companies are publicly saying what they need.
Yeah.
And if they're hiring for exactly that, if they're saying a new SDR would need to be familiar with this and this and that tool, first you need what they're using, then you need what they're thinking about, what someone, what their pain points are, and then and so forth. So there's a lot of rich information, which if you bring back to HubSpot in the right way, you can really use that for, again, improving the lead scoring for everything.
Yeah, I've done that with outreach before. Like, I do HubSpot consulting. So I've looked at like job pages to see if they're asking for HubSpot experience in their posts. And if so, I'm like, cool, they use HubSpot. Easy. Any final thoughts from you, Madeline?
I think I'm just like imagining bringing all this together in my head. I'm just getting excited about, all the logic involved. And like you said, I think it's just a lot more open now. Like everybody should obviously, like realize that there is opportunity to use it in probably the ways that you actually wanted to originally, that you thought you couldn't.
Well, the whole concept behind value first scoring is it transforms lead scoring into a dynamic system that identifies authentic signals of interest and enables natural value flow by focusing on contact fit, company context, and recent engagement patterns. It replaces the outdated qualification gates with an approach that accelerates genuine connection and sustainable growth. And if you are rebuilding your lead scoring, and if you're using lead scoring, especially an old tool, you need to. I definitely encourage you to rethink how you're scoring and whether that makes sense in today's world. Massive thank you to Clement, Oaks, and Madeline for showing up and sharing what so many of us have felt, that lead scoring hasn't lived up to its promise. That's why I built the Lead Scoring Masterminds, a guided 2-month intensive designed to help you replace the legacy lead score before the sunset, rebuild your model with value first principles, and finally create scoring that actually supports prioritization, handoff, and alignment. You'll get weekly live workshops, 2 working sessions to build your actual system, templates, dashboards, and training tools, and expert and peer support along the way. If you want to stop fighting your lead scoring and start fixing it, now's the time. You can head over to valuefirst.site/leadscore, one word, to sign up for the waitlist. We'll start July 1st, and I'd love to have you with us. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Casey.